Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sharon Lavery, music director of the Downey Symphony Orchestra, and it is my pleasure today to have as our guest our principal timpanist, Danielle Squyres, and she does a lot more than just play the timpani. She plays many other percussion instruments brilliantly, which you'll be able to witness for yourself. But I'd like to welcome today Ms. Danielle Squyres. Hello, Danielle.
Hello, great to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm wondering if you could just begin by giving us a little bit about your background, where you went to school, where you grew up. But I'm going to do something differently here than I've done in the past couple Zoom sessions. I want you to dig deep. I want you to tell me, how old were you when you started? I want you to tell me why you chose the percussion. And when was it that you decided, I'm going to do this for a living?
Well, fortunately, a lot of people in my family were interested in playing musical instruments. That goes back to my great-grandfather, great-grandmother. My great-grandfather played tuba, and he was actually the very first musicians union president of Orange County.
No way.
So, yes, I have a tiny little union book, and it has his name listed as the president of the Orange County Musicians Union. So that was pretty cool. And my great-grandmother played mandolin, my grandmother played piano, my mom plays piano. And so learning an instrument was always encouraged in our family. And I actually started off on piano when I was about maybe 8 years old, maybe. And unfortunately, I had a fairly good ear. I could pick out melodies and things like that, but I could not sit still. I could not sit still. I would just get too antsy, you know, I couldn't just do that. So they said, well, let's wait till you're a little older. And so then by chance in junior high school, I saw the junior high band played for one of the assemblies or whatever. And I saw someone play the glockenspiel in the band. And I just thought that was the coolest instrument I ever saw. It's kind of like drums. You still get to move sticks and stuff, but you get to play melodies and things like that. And I just said, oh, I want to play that instrument. So my mom goes down to the junior high band director and she says, my child would like to play in the band. And of course we know if you're playing glockenspiel, you have to play in the drum section. So it's the whole package. And the band director said, we have too many drummers. Nope, can't do it. We have too many drummers. And so I didn't want to play any other instrument, you know? I just wasn't interested. And so I kept telling my mom how much I wanted to play. And so she went down again to the school and she insisted to the band director that you should let my child go in there and play drum. And they let me in, and I just have been there ever since in the percussion section.
Glockenspiel.
So, yeah.
So glockenspiel found you.
Yes, it called to me. And of course, like I said, once you're in the percussion section, you play all the instruments. Right. So I had to learn how to play snare drum and bass drum and cymbals and timpani and all that stuff. And I like those too. I found out those were really fun too. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed, we did some parades and things like that. And I enjoyed, because the drums play every minute of a parade. We play, when the band isn't playing, we're playing, keeping everybody in step. So there was a lot of playing. And I thought that was pretty fun too. So.
And good for somebody who can't sit still.
Absolutely. So, and I just stayed in band, went through junior high, then got into high school. High school is very into marching band at that time, didn't even really have an orchestra, but I was very into the marching band. That's where all my friends were. So it was social as well. I found a group of people that I just loved hanging out with. And so it was as much social as it was musical.
Yeah.
And so I got really into the marching drums, actually. And I was in a drum and bugle corps. And in a strange roundabout way, through drum corps, believe it or not, I found out about classical music, because it's an interesting experience hearing a drum and bugle corps playing Verdi's Requiem, which I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. I heard this drum corps play Verdi's Requiem, and I go, that's kind of a neat piece of music.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go and get the original recording of Verdi's Requiem and listen to it and go, oh, that's an orchestra,
Wow.
you know? And I kept waiting for the snare drum parts to come in, but there's no snare drum on the original. And I still miss it. I still miss hearing snare drum in Verdi's Requiem. But so it's interesting that in a roundabout way, that's how I kind of got into classical music. I started enjoying more and more of that kind of music. And then in college, in junior college, I went to first, I joined the orchestra there. And everyone thought orchestra was boring. So I was the only one. I didn't have to fight for any parts. I got to play all the timpani parts, or if there was a big glockenspiel part, I'd play that. If there was a big xylophone, I played that. So that was wonderful. I had a great time. And as far as when I knew I wanted to make this a career, I don't think I actually consciously decided that.
Mm-hmm.
I just never quit. I just kept taking lessons, and kept joining other bands, youth orchestras, things like that. And I just nobody kicked me out, so I still hung around. And
Wow.
that's it. And this is my cat here.
Hi, Kitty. What a great story that is, Danielle. Oh, wow. You've been with the orchestra, Downey's orchestra, for almost 15 years, I think we figured out. And I'm just curious if you have any favorite concerts over those 15 years, or even favorite moments in a concert?
Every once in a while, people ask you that question, and it's very difficult, because once I'm playing a piece of music, I'm completely in it all the way, and I'm totally absorbed by it. And so, I enjoy everything I'm playing at that moment. That being said, it's usually more fun, when there's a lot of percussion. For me, it's usually more fun. Some of the Ginastera Estancia suite was wonderful. I really enjoyed that.
That was so fun.
And one day I'm hoping we play Buckaroo Holiday by Aaron Copland.
I know. We're going to get to that in a second.
And there was one concert, I think it was like maybe the year before you were conductor of the orchestra. I was allowed to play the typewriter by Leroy Anderson.
Of course, of course.
And so that was fun, going up in front of the orchestra and doing that. So that was a lot of fun too.
We have to bring that back out.
I just hope people know what a typewriter is now.
That's true. That's true. I remember the concert. I had scheduled all 4 dances of Rodeo by Copland. And for some reason, I think it had to do with timing. I had to shrink the minutes of music in the concert. So we only did 2 of those dances. And I remember you were so disappointed because you had never been able to do all 4 of those dances. I'm just curious, what else is on your wish list?
Oh gosh. Um, I this is kind of an obscure piece, but I think it's a beautiful piece. I don't think it gets played enough. But Samuel Barber wrote a couple of symphonies, but his Symphony No. 1
Right.
is, I think, just a beautiful piece, and I think it should be played more often than it is.
We were just about to do that at USC this past April before COVID hit.
Oh,
So
but isn't that a gorgeous piece?
it's gorgeous. I'm literally writing it down for, I always have a list of things that I want to do in Downey, and that's going on there right now. So that'll be inspired by Danielle Squyres. One of my favorite things that I love that you do is when we do our children's concerts, you organize a percussion demonstration. And it is always the biggest hit with all the kids. You could tell they just go crazy when you guys start demonstrating instruments back there. I'm just wondering if maybe you could give us just a little history and of some of the percussion instruments and maybe demonstrate. I know we have a couple little videos because you couldn't get all of your larger instruments in the same time.
Right.
I'm going to bring up a picture here. I'm going to share my screen. This is a picture of Danielle and where she would be if we were not in this situation.
That's usually my office right there. And as you can see, those drums, they go by a couple of different names. In England, they like to call them kettle drums.
Right.
In America and most everywhere else, they call them timpani.
Mm-hmm.
And those drums, you can actually tune those drums to pitches. Those are the only, usually the only drums that you can actually tune notes, like B flat or G or A or whatever note you need.
Right.
And if you look, there's a plastic top on top of the drum, which we either call a skin or a drum head. And those have to be tensioned very evenly so that there's no distortion or variation in the pressure, so that you are allowed to get a clear pitch out of the drum. Mm-hmm. And if you'll notice those rods that go down the sides of the drum, if you follow those, it's hard to see in this picture, but if you follow those rods that go down, they go down to a mechanism that's connected to a pedal. And with your foot, you move that pedal. When you move it one way, you're increasing the tension on that plastic drum head, mm-hmm. which makes the note go higher. Mm-hmm. And if you move the pedal the other way, it loosens the tension of that plastic drum head and makes the tension go lower, which means you're going to get a lower note. Right. And by moving those pedals around and using your ear, and sometimes there's a little mechanism on the side that helps you find certain notes, you can play sometimes even melodies, but you can play harmonies and fit in with different pitches with the orchestra. And many times I will have someone come up to me after the concert and say, I noticed you were sniffing your drums during the concert. What's that about? And I'm telling you right now, I'm not sniffing the drums. But sometimes during the middle of a concert, we have to change pitches. And we can't start hitting the drum loud to hear what pitch we want. So we have to get our head and our ear and our face really close down to that drum skin so that we can tap the drum lightly and just so only we can hear it and hear if we're in tune or not, getting to the next note. And so we use both that, we use our ears, we use, sometimes there is a little mechanism on the side of the drum which helps us get in the ballpark, but we're always using our ear. Our ear is the final say in whether we're in tune or not.
Fabulous.
So that's normally what I'd be doing. But since I can't fit those big 4 drums in my house here, they won't even fit through the door, I just had to show you a picture of what I do.
Where are they?
Well, they're out in my garage right now.
Got it.
A lot of things are kind of in storage right now because we can't play anywhere. So it's kind of looks like an episode of Hoarders, you know, at my, because there's instruments everywhere. So anyway, when you're in the percussion section, as I said before, you're playing all the instruments. And so, and when you go to college, I also went to, going back to my training, I went to Cal State Long Beach to get my degree there. And I studied with actually the current timpanist of the Los Angeles Opera, Mr. Greg Goodall. And so I got my training there, but also at the same time I was taking lessons at school, I was studying privately with the principal percussionist of the Los Angeles Philharmonic, whose name is Mitchell Peters. And so I was really burning the candle at both ends, but it was very fortunate because they each taught me different things, and it really helped put everything together. And so when you get a degree, when you get a percussion degree from the university, you are expected to know how to play timpani, snare drum, all the mallet instruments, and even a lot of other things, some of the Latin instruments and some of the, what we call accessories, like tambourine and triangle and things like that. So that's how you become versatile in this career. The more instruments you know how to play, the more employment opportunities that there are.
Absolutely. I was thinking we could maybe show a picture of the xylophone, and
sure.
Then maybe we can, let me share my screen here, and then maybe we can share your little video.
Sure.
Bring up this picture. There it is. Hang on.
That's my xylophone right there. That, if you look, those bars on that xylophone, they're made out of Honduras rosewood, which now it would be a big problem to import into the country because there is such a shortage of rosewood, and they're very strict about how much can be imported. But this instrument is probably right around 100 years old this year. It was probably made around 1920 by the Leedy Drum Company in Indianapolis. And so the bars are excellent quality because they've had 100 years to age. So they're getting harder and they stay in tune better, and they have a really nice sound. The xylophone, you can play with 2 mallets, sometimes 3 mallets, sometimes 4 mallets if you want to play some chords. Normally it's played with 2. And the xylophone has, I would describe it as a somewhat brittle quality. It doesn't, it's, the big brother to the xylophone is called a marimba. That also has rosewood bars, but it's a lot more mellow. It's a larger instrument. It has a lower range, and it sounds much more mellow. A lot of people enjoy hearing that because it's more pleasing to the ear, they think. I like the xylophone better, but whatever. And the reason the xylophone is more popular in the orchestra than the marimba is because you need an instrument that can cut through. That, you know, there's only one xylophone in the orchestra going against, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40 violins. Sure. and the big brass section and everything else. So that xylophone, when you use hard mallets on the xylophone, it can cut through the entire. And so that's why composers write for that more than the marimba, because the marimba is going to blend in with the orchestra more. Occasionally you will see the marimba, but when they want something to really cut through, it's going to go to the xylophone.
That's a great point. And if it's all right with you, can I share your video, or did you want to tell us one more thing?
Well, let me just tell you one thing before you start the video. I will say also in the 1920s and 30s, if people remember this term in show business called vaudeville, there were, before television, you know, people wanted entertainment. So they would have to go to theaters and get live entertainment. One of the big acts was xylophone players. Xylophone was a very popular instrument, believe it or not, back in the 20s and 30s. And there were some people that would dance and play xylophone at the same time, and whatever would sell the tickets. I'm going to play a typical song that was played on xylophone, and a little bit of improvisation in the style of that period. So this is Sweet Georgia Brown on xylophone.
I just love it. I love it. And all of a sudden Gershwin snuck in there.
Well, you know, pay tribute a little bit.
I love it. Fantastic, fantastic. What's next, our Glock?
One of the other main instruments, one of the main mallet instruments of the orchestra is the glockenspiel.
Right.
And the glockenspiel, as you can see, instead of wooden bars, it has slightly smaller steel bars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually about two and a half octaves, just a little shy of a full 2.5 octaves. And as you'll hear, for the glockenspiel, it is a very piercing instrument. It rings a lot. And this is another instrument that can just cut through an orchestra. And someone that really uses the glockenspiel really well is John Williams. And when he wants this melody to sound, you know, flying through the air, he'll add the glockenspiel to the flutes and woodwinds, and it'll really just sound fantastic. Of course, genius, so that helps. Yeah. But I just played, on this example, I just played a couple of little arpeggios so you can hear how long those bars ring. And then just a short little clip, it's actually a John Williams excerpt from Flight from Neverland from Hook.
Listen to that ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's just part of the characteristic of the instrument. That's not a defect. And when you're within the orchestra, you don't, that after ring, it doesn't bother you, you know, it just blends in with the orchestra. There's only a few times in the literature where you really need to stop the sound quickly, but in general, it just blends into the overall sound, and it's not displeasing in any way.
Right. And then, of course, we get our non-pitched instruments, right? But
That is correct.
how about we start with a little snare?
Sure. Do you want to talk about it first, or?
You tell me.
Well, let me just tell you this piece. This piece is called Crazy Army, and it was composed in 1934 by Lemley. And this is what is called a rudimental drum solo. And rudiments are basically what rudiments are to the drums like scales are to the other instruments. They're just different ways, different patterns of sticking things. And by developing all these different stickings and patterns, that gives you dexterity and coordination and allows you to be more fluent on the instrument. And this comes from the military tradition. In fact, there was an organization back in the day called the National Association of Rudimental Drummers. And it was a big deal to be in this organization. You had to know all your rudiments. And it was considered a very prideful moment when you could join that organization. This composition has several rudiments, has an open double stroke roll, it has things called flams, it has a flamacue, it has flamadiddles, and 6 tuplets. So it's all those together, you end up with a composition like this.
You make this look effortless. I mean, such control, Danielle. Wow.
Well, that's one of the things, you know, that's one of the things that as drummers, we have to do. That's like our daily, when not only do we have to play scales, practice our scales on the xylophone and marimba, but we also have to practice these dexterity patterns and coordination patterns. There's entire books just with different ways to play different patterns. And the more you can develop that dexterity and coordination, you're going to be a better drummer and just be more comfortable and be able to execute some of the trickier patterns that show up sometimes.
Yeah. Anything else you want to bang or hit before we?
Sure. I do have a few things.
Okay.
By coincidence. I have, well, another instrument that you'll often see in the orchestra is the tambourine. And it has a skin on it. And a lot of times the tambourines actually use a real animal skin, either goat or calf. And if you'll notice the tambourine, it has jingles all around the side. And the jingles are really what makes the tambourine sound, because it depends on the material of the jingles that create the sound. These happen to be copper jingles. There's also German silver. There's bronze. There's brass. Here's another tambourine that doesn't have as many jingles, but these are brass, hand-hammered brass jingles. And you're either going to see us in the orchestra, we're either going to be shaking the tambourine, we're either going to be hitting the tambourine, or you might see us sometimes do a thumb roll, which, unsanitary as it is in these pandemic times, you moisten your thumb a little bit, and then you slide it along that head. And it's just vibration, that's all it is. It's just, your thumb is doing this, but at a very high speed, and that sets those jingles into motion. Those are the most popular methods that we use on the tambourine. I also have, sometimes we get into Latin music, and sometimes you'll see us use what's called a güiro. Now, there are literally hundreds of Latin instruments. You know, this is just one of them. And this is just a gourd, a dried out, hollowed out gourd with ridges on top. And we just scrape it with these wire scrapers here. And I have a little face painted on mine. Isn't that cute? So I like that.
Do you,
also,
can you play that one more time? The sound kind of went out. Just play it just a little bit longer. Yeah, we get the idea. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And it's just use a little handle with little stiff wires in it. That's all. For more of the just noise effects, you know, we can have things like ratchets. Not the most musical thing in the world, but sometimes you have to you have to do what the composer asked for. Now, we in the percussion section are also called upon to do things that, although technically they may not be percussion instruments, but they're in the quote unquote sound effects department. So anytime there's a funny sound that a composer wants, guess who gets called to play it? The percussion. So if you want a chicken sound, that's the chicken clucker. We have a cow whistle. That's always a golden one. Trainer boat whistle. And the ever popular cuckoo. Now there's different kinds of cuckoos. Sometimes you can blow into them. This one works like an old bellows. So there's, the whistles are manufactured inside and it has the bellows inside. So you just go, always popular. So that's kind of how the percussion section got to be thought of as a bunch of clowns, is because we're always playing all the funny sounding instruments, but we've all, you know, we have percussion degrees, we have university degrees, we had to learn how to do all that. So those are just some of the things. There are literally hundreds of percussion instruments, and even some things that are not technically percussion instruments, where you end up playing them, brake drums, springs, you know, hubcaps, anything. Slapstick, yes. I don't have one with me, but yeah, yeah, anything can be a percussion instrument. So,
well, you have floored us all with your fabulous demonstrations. I think it would be just good for maybe if you could talk close out this session by talking about why you love playing in the Downey Symphony?
Oh gosh, it's hard to put into words because there's just so many great things about it. When you are working with your colleagues, a lot of us have been in the Downey Symphony for a while. You're not only working with colleagues, but you're working with your friends. And that's one of the wonderful things about the Downey Symphony is that it's really close-knit, and we're basically like a big family. And so when you're in an environment like that, it allows you to feel comfortable when you play. And when you're comfortable when you're playing your best. And so we're always making great music, and we love entertaining the audience. And it's just a fantastic, pardon me, Ling Ling. It's just a fantastic convergence of skill, and there's fun involved. It's a lot of hard work to play in a symphony orchestra, but it's, at the end of the day, it is enjoyable, especially when you are participating in a community effort like this. So it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of. And I love it. That's why I've been there so many years.
Yeah, and I can tell that you love it. I can see it all over your face when you're playing, and I can see when I'm looking back there, if I don't ever have to give you a cue, ever, but if I do think I should, I can always see that you, and you mentioned this earlier, you're just submerged in the music, and I can see that, and it comes through in your beautiful playing, Danielle.
And I know that I scowl a lot when I play, but that doesn't mean I'm not having a great time. It's just you're concentrating so much,
I know. And like I said, I mean, I study my score, and timpani hasn't played in 47 measures, so I go to give you a cue, and you're already there, ready. You don't need it. So just know, as a conductor, how much I appreciate that.
And I just want to say one thing, that thinking back about some of the favorite concerts and favorite pieces, when we did the Emperor Concerto just not too long ago,
January,
I thought you and I had a beautiful moment where we were just so in sync on this one spot where it was slowing down and getting quiet. And
it's the very end of the third movement, and it's basically turns into a timpani solo, and it's for a conductor, it's a tricky road to drive down, whether I lead you, you follow me, I follow you. But you're right, we were just both right there in the same moment together. I remember that distinctly.
Yeah, that was wonderful, because it's also so nice to obviously, the conductor's in charge, but it's nice when you're both connected. You're like, I remember we were looking at each other, and we were just like totally in sync. And it was just such a great feeling to know that we're both right there, on the same page. And I thought it worked beautifully.
It's the best when that happens, when we can make music together. That's the best. So
yeah.
Danielle, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Incredibly informative and interesting and fun, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I can't wait till we get back together again and make music, and
I know.
Just energy. I think one of the things about this pandemic is that it just made everyone realize how much they miss live music, and how much they miss being around other human beings, for one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So.
Well, thank you again. I want to remind everyone that just because we are not able to be physically with you, it doesn't mean you can't still support us. Easiest way, just go to our website, and there's a nice, easy support tab that you can just click on, www.downeysymphony.org. I also want to thank the Downey Symphonic Society Board of Directors for sponsoring these Zoom sessions, and I'm hoping that they will sponsor some more. So thank you again, Danielle, and take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.